Welcome back to part two, people, talking about the Jack O'Sullivan case. This is by the Operation Merlin Falcon channel. We made some great points and mentioned amnesia and the fall that he may have hit his head at the party on a banister or wall or something going down the stairs. Do subscribe to the Operation Merlin Falcon channel. I thought he made some brilliant points. He says that he's covered a few missing persons cases as well, so this is kind of interesting. I'm going to do a bit on this because he's got an episode 2 as well, but I'm going to finish the episode 1 off, and if I do stop the video, I pause the video, it's just to make a point. Thank you.
It's just not. Because something's going to come along. Could be a small clue, could be a large clue. But I'll tell you, to be honest with you folks, in my experience, it's always the little things. It's always been the little things that solve cases. It's not the real big things. It's just a fact. That's been my experience. It's the little thing. Which leads me to this. I was looking through the YouTube channels at the items that I think it's a missing persons organization that had posted online, and other YouTubers have posted those items as well. The last the items that he was seen or he had in his possession when he was last seen. One of those items is listed. Actually, there's 2 items listed, and I'm going to talk about that briefly, and then I'm going to let it go, because, like I said, it's the little things that are important, and when you mess them up in the earlier stages, and I'm not chastising anyone, I'm not putting anybody down for putting that list together. That's the most inclusive list I've ever seen in any case that I've ever worked, and they did a hell of a good job. So don't get me wrong, but it needs to be fixed. In the sense, and maybe it has, maybe it's already been discussed, but what we need to do, folks, is we need to make it right, because right now it's about half and half on the videos on the YouTubes that one says he has, he has an Armani watch, and the other one says he has a Hugo Boss. I think it's a Boss watch. I assume it's Hugo. I'm not up on the finer things in life, folks, but I know it has Boss written on there. I'm assuming it's Hugo. Don't quote me on that. But there's 2 different types of watches. Now, that has to be pinned down, because that's a very important clue, or it could potentially be a very important clue in working a case, is a watch. Because let me tell you something about a watch like that. Both of those watches are of high quality, and they're going to last a very long time. And that watch, no matter what happened to Jack, whether he's roaming around in another town or city or wherever and don't know who he is due to a head injury or what have you, chances are he might still have that watch. Or if we go back to
Very true. Or someone may have tried to sell that watch. It's quite bizarre that none of his basically clothes were found. To be honest with you, that is really, really bizarre. There are people who think that he started a new life somewhere else. I don't believe that, to be honest with you, but anything's a possibility, because, like I said, we haven't found a body as yet, or him, if he's still alive.
Scenario where I talked about if someone robbed him of that watch, whether they kept it or whether they pawned it or whether they sold it, it's probably going to turn up.
Agreed.
It's probably going to turn up. Chances are, out of all those items, if you think about it, out of all those items, that one item is going to withstand the test of time pretty well. Even if Even if, like some people say that he ended up in the water, that watch is still going to withstand the test of time for a very long time. That's just a fact. So while I'm talking about that, folks, is that piece of evidence being the most important evidence, it has to be set straight. Either it's Armani or either it's a Boss watch, Hugo Boss, whatever you want to call it. So whoever, has that, listed as an item, hopefully we can get that corrected and narrow that down to which one it is. Okay? So I'm going to get off my soapbox on that one. So move on to something else. And we'll see what that something else is, because to go back to the residence where the birthday party took place, where his new friends were, where his new friends stayed. If I were investigating this case, that's probably the first place where I'd started.
I agree. Once again, I talked to Ali about this, and that place should have been placed under investigation. The police did go there, but like I said, they dismissed a lot of what was said, and the Jack injury was really, really worried me, because it was said by one of the friends that there was an altercation at the party with him and somebody else. So what actually happened there? Did someone smash something over his head to put him down the stairs? Are people lying? I do think that the key points, or people who know what happened to Jack, were at that party. I do think that. And why is people being so quiet is very, very odd.
But it seems to me, and I'm not really understanding why, if it be the case now, I don't know. But what I've read and what Jack O'Sullivan's mom has talked about, Catherine O'Sullivan has talked about, the CCTV camera footage, seems to me that they jumped right on that and looked at that as, okay, well, we know he was last seen on this CCTV footage, so I'm wondering if their question in their mind was, well, maybe the residence where the party took place isn't important. I hope they weren't thinking that. I hope the police department weren't thinking that. Because that would be a wrong way to think about this case. And I think the private detective who Catherine O'Sullivan had hired, I think he probably realized that as well. And I'm just surmising, I don't know for sure. But that's one of the main things that
I think it was the private investigator that found more information, and I'm sure he was the one that also found out that basically Jack, had a bit of a fall or hit his head or something. That was kind of odd at the end of the day. But like I said, where are the friends? Why aren't they coming out and letting us know what Jack's condition was like at the party, or when he left the party? I think it's quite bizarre, because normally you've got one friend, he did go out with friends he actually knew, and some of them did go to the party with him. Yes, I know he went to meet new people, but how come no one's come out and said, look, Jack was like this? It doesn't make sense. You've always got one witness at a party that, like Jack, that would come out and say something, surely.
I read that he was working on. And in my mind, that should have been worked on all along by the police department. And we should have heard more about that. But we haven't, still to this day. And that could be a problem. So, yeah, to look at how he traveled on foot, like in a big loop, all the way back around, he pretty much ends up right back at if you were to look at his phone information, and they're not making that available, the police department isn't. If you were to look at that that other people have put on the internet, doesn't look like it's very far where his phone ended up from where that house party residence was at. And I'm only surmising because I don't know the address for either one. I'm just going off of what other people have posted as this where he started and where his phone ended up. Now, that to me is an issue. And, without having solid information as to whether he was still with his phone at that ping where his mom said.
This is the big question. Was he with his phone? I'm not sure at that point he was, to be honest with you. I've talked to Ali Harris. She knows the area quite well, and she said that area is quite known as to be quite dodgy and have some dodgy characters around there. So there is a high possibility that he maybe have come to harm or some kind of altercation happened, and it could have been like a robbery which went wrong. But like I said, where is he? That's the massive point.
Said I think it was at 0540 hours in the morning where that phone ended up. Take a look at that, and then take a look at where they're saying that the birthday party residence is located in that approximate area. Folks, take a look at that. I have a lot of questions with that. Now, it's also been said that there was some sort of shoving going on at the party after Jack had fell down the stairs or injured himself on the stairs. There was someone had picked on him, is what I read, and then there was some shoving going on. I'd like to know the extent of that.
This is what I mean. These are points that I think that should have been elaborated on the person or the investigator telling us who was telling him this at the end of the day. Because I assume Jack had at least one of his friends that was out with him before, his good friend. I just don't get it why the information at the party tends to be a little bit secretive, and yet a private investigator had to be hired to find some of this information out, unless we wouldn't have known it.
Was it really shoving? I would probably get written statements from all the witnesses. I would have separated them, gotten written statements from all the witnesses in that, just to see and verify that story is solid. But it sounds like to me that never happened. And it sounds like to me that the information about him suffering from a head injury didn't come into play for a few months.
There you go. And like I said, the private investigator found that out. I'm not sure the police really thought there was anything they could really do about what they heard. I'm sure of it. They must have asked questions and gone to the house and were happy with what the residents or the homeowner or the people renting that had the party. It just, something's odd. I do believe that, like what Merlin's saying, is that I think whoever knows answers, they were at that party. What happened to Jack? I'm sure of it. And why did he end up back in the area where the party was or nearby?
Now, that's one of the issues that I have with this case, folks. That's one of the issues that I have with this case. Because there's a lot that could have been learned if the police department went to that residence and talked to these folks where Jack was physically last seen, unless, of course, later on there was a taxi driver or some other witness, in that phase that I was telling you about earlier in the video, that I can't really tell whether that was eyewitness information or that was CCTV information, where it was assumed or someone had seen, or he had physically attempted to flag down a cab or talk to a cab driver. I just don't know enough about that incident to say that was the last time he was physically seen. Now, I'm not talking about CCTV stuff. I'm talking about Jack O'Sullivan was at a residence at a birthday party where he was physically last seen. And whether he looped back around, right, and ended up back up there by Granby Hill and worked his way over, I guess, to the east, was damn near in line where his phone had last pinged, according to his mother, if both of those locations are correct that the YouTube folks and other people have put on the internet. If that's correct, it's not really that far away. It's not. And if I were investigating this case, see, I probably would have started there. And if I would have heard that he had, if I would have gotten information from the folks at the house, this birthday party, that Jack O'Sullivan had suffered from a head injury. Now that, I don't know how the UK works, but here in the United States, as an investigator, that would open up the doorway to a lot of information that you could have got in a reasonable amount of time. And what I mean by that is there's a thing called exigent circumstances, and I'm sure they have it over there, especially with missing children or vulnerable adults and injured folks, especially an injury that he may have had, and I say may have suffered, that could have been articulated by the police department to get cell phone records in a very short period of time.
I agree. I don't think that the police did enough to find out whether there was any suspicious activity before Jack went missing. Because, like I said, they didn't mention the head injury. We had to wait until the private investigator, which was hired by the family, to actually go in there to get more information. And then the police think that he drowned and not really dealing with the family. They have to email, Catherine has to email in to get any information back. So it just tells me that they've written this case off of him drowning without any proof.
In a very short period of time. That would have been pertinent to finding Jack O'Sullivan. So whether or not they did that, doesn't sound like they did, and I'm only assuming. There was a very small window of opportunity that was missed, in my opinion. People make mistakes, but folks, you just can't keep repeating mistakes.
That was the Operation Merlin Falcon channel. Do go and subscribe to him. I thought you made some brilliant points. And I do think that there's someone at the party and in the Facebook group that know what happened to Jack O'Sullivan. Sadly, I don't think Jack is alive as much as I want him to be. I think too much time has passed. I do think that something sinister did happen to him. But like I said, I guess the big question is when we will find him and where is he. I think they're big questions. But like I said, hopefully, like what the Operations Merlin said, it's the small things sometimes which count in cases like that, and someone may come forward or feel guilty to let us know what happened to Jack O'Sullivan. This may go on for a bit, people, but I think we'll end up finding the truth. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to Streamline Entertainment. I do think Merlin there made some great points, and that the flat where the house, should I say, where the party is, I do think it has a lot more information. I do think that the witnesses should have been interviewed separately because, like I said, a lot of them maybe had left and gone their own way, and we're not to know who they were. I don't think the police investigated it as well as what they could have done. That's my view anyway. Thank you. Justice for Jack O'Sullivan, and I hope that we do find the truth, and we're going to keep talking about the case. Thank you.